one thing you'd said in response to a previous question, you weren't so inclined to talk when you were out of boxing. You didn't want to talk about your depression. You didn't want to talk about your sadness. You made it sound like it cut a little bit deeper than just the sort of general frustration of having to overcome an injury. Is that a fair assessment? Was this something that really got into your head and left you wondering about how this all might go?
Well, like I said, I'm a very passionate individual. I'm a dreamer. It's in human nature. Not every day is going to be our best day. And for me, my thought process started to get a little morbid. You know, I started having to ask myself the question, are you ever going to fight again? Is your career over at the age of 28, 29 years old? Are you done? Is all that you accomplished all that you will ever accomplish in your career? And if so, you know, I mean, it's sad, it's upsetting. It's still something to be proud about, being a two-time world champion, unifying the WBA with the WBC when I defeated the undefeated world champion Danny Garcia at the time. But, you know, I'm still in my prime, so, you know, it was quite depressing to start thinking like that. And obviously, I got myself out of that train of thought. And getting in the gym also helps because as you're not training, you're not feeling good either. As you train and you lose weight, you know, everybody feels better about themselves. And training is a natural way to increase endorphins in the brain. Like I said, we're human. Not every day can be your best day. And I had some depressing moments and some negative thought patterns at that time. But luckily for me, my doctors kept encouraging that you will be back. And I could have got back at the end of 2018, but I talked to my team, I talked to my wife, and I was encouraged that nothing good was coming out of 2018. So let's just wait for 2019. Let's start fresh. Let's hit it in January. And, you know, patience can be a virtue sometimes. And I believe we're having a tremendous year. And I'm obviously a lot happier to be back in the sport.
And lastly, some people seem to be unhappy that there's no VADA testing for this fight. Can you share your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've always been a clean fighter. I've been tested throughout my boxing career at all times. Well, not at all times, but whenever they so deem it fit, I'm tested. And there was testing. It might not be as thorough as other fights. I mean, as far as constantly popping up in camp. But at the end of the day, there has been testing. And it was done through the promoters, you know. It's not my job to create testing. I fight clean at all times ever since I was an amateur, a U.S. Striving to be an Olympian. I'm prideful that even my boxing style is pretty clean. You don't see Keith Thurman being warned for low blows constantly. You don't see me being warned for the way headbutts or anything like that. I always have been a clean fighter, always will be a clean fighter. And it's one of the least of my concerns. Manny Pacquiao, we've watched him. He doesn't look 10 years younger. He doesn't look like his strength and conditioning is beyond a 40-year-old who is naturally an athlete, somebody who's been active for the past year. You know, he's been very active and he stayed in shape. So he doesn't look anything out of the norm. And whatever the promoters request, we do. There will be testing, just like every fight that's a world championship fight, before and after the fight, as the people that came and tested us a few weeks ago. So, you know, I mean, that to me, that's petty stuff. And, yeah, I mean, I always say take steroids if you want, because you might actually need it, you know. I don't really care, you know. There's a lot of people out here that fight in the streets. You know, there's heavyweights popping positive, but we all know heavyweights are fat and lazy, you know, not welterweights. Heavyweights are fat and lazy, you know. So it just is what it is, man. It's never been a major concern throughout my career. I test clean at every time. So it's whatever, man.
Our next question is going to come from Manuk Akopian. Please go ahead. From PBC.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. I wanted to talk to you about your training regimen. On the PBC Countdown, you obviously, it was documented that you went to the wellness center. Just wanted to talk to you about yoga. How have you been incorporating yoga in your training for this camp as well?
I have not. So that is misinformation. I'm definitely a fan of yoga. There's a lot of athletes who are fans of yoga in today's generation. Yoga has tremendous health benefits, especially in combined with meditation. Meditation also has health benefits, and it helps with your stretching. It helps with your centering. It helps with your focus. Yoga can help with your breathing, so I'm aware of a lot of the different modalities of what it can do for athletes. But in this specific training camp, I did not utilize yoga that much. I have a massage therapist who also stretches me, and he opens me up, and he keeps my muscles moving well, keeps my body moving well. And I stuck with those basics and a lot of hard training. It's hard to train twice a day and find time to stretch for an hour.
Gotcha. So was it specifically something you decided to not do this camp with it conscientiously because it didn't work for you previously, or what was the thought process in not going with the alternative and spiritual training programs that you usually go with?
I never do it. I don't think you've ever seen me on film in a training camp in the past for the Sean Porter fight. Sean Porter did more yoga than I did. So I like yoga. I'll participate in yoga, but I'll participate more in my off season than when I'm in season. I like to focus on my boxing, my strategy, and my technique to win each and every fight. And like I said, I have a stretching guy who will stretch me and keep my body open and moving properly. It's really hard for me to fit yoga into the overall regimen because I'm focused on training hard, strength and conditioning, and losing weight.
Gotcha. Thanks for clearing that up. And lastly, obviously with Manny Pacquiao, he's known for his stamina, his energy, his speed. How have you been preparing to kind of face an opponent that probably you haven't faced like that before from a stamina standpoint?
At the end of the day, watching the tape and just knowing Pacquiao, he is a guy who will produce numbers as long as you let him. Movement can always make it difficult for a fighter like Pacquiao to put out the output that they might want to put out, or an output that they're used to putting out. But movement can also neglect the activity of an overall fight. So it's not that, I just know how boxing works. So if I ever feel like he's getting off a little too much, maybe I will increase some of my movement. At the same time, his conditioning is always great, but when I look back at film, there's not a lot of people that go to Manny Pacquiao's body. And I don't know if that's because of his small, short size. I don't know if it's difficult. I remember Ellerby making a statement that Manny is an awkward fighter and that Keith might find himself in the ring having a little bit more difficulty than what he's mentally prepared for. And that can happen, or I can just hit him in the shit. So, we'll find out real soon.
I love this dude.
It's real, baby. I'm real. That's
no, it is. It is. And that's why I respect it 100.
It looks like our last question is going to come from John Cutney from Reddit Boxing. Please go ahead.
Oh, hey, Keith. So do you remember the first time you heard about Manny Pacquiao, going way back? I think he was something like 12 when he made it. You were 12 when he made his HBO debut. Were you a fan of him during his prime?
No. I was really not a boxing fan at a young age. I was not a boxing spectator fan. I'm not a big fan of almost any sport because I'm not a spectator. You know, you want to talk basketball? Let's go play. You want to. I can ice skate. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean I'm trying to go to a hockey game or anything of that nature. But when I was a young kid, I did roller hockey because I rollerbladed in Florida and we don't have ice out here. So I love participating in sports. I'm not one that sits down, watches games, is a rah-rah, drinks beer. That's not me because I live too much of an active lifestyle. I want to be put in the action. Put me in the game, coach. Give me a piece of the action. So I started watching more professional boxing when I knew I was going to turn pro, and obviously I dominate most of my guys through the welterweight division. So the first fight I really remember Manny Pacquiao off the top of my head would happen to be Pacquiao De La Hoya.
So just as a quick follow-up, so I guess you weren't as much of a fan of him coming up, but, he was still an established star. Just wondering what it means to you now to, having come this whole journey from an amateur to a pro to a world champion, now fighting an all-time great in Pacquiao. I mean, does this feel like a new phase of your career, new level of accomplishment to get to this fight?
I mean, I wanted this fight 6 years ago at the MGM Grand. I was talking to people like yourself with cameras in my face asking me, what do you think about, the Floyd Pacquiao fight? Will it ever happen? And we had opinions back then before the fight was ever made. And, I'm like, shoot, they could always make the fight with me. I was always rated in the top 10, for many, many, many years before I became world champion. I was there. So, I just always thought that it would be a beautiful fight. I would always love the opportunity. And to have the opportunity right in front of me and we're counting down the days, I mean, it's just a beauty, man. I mean, it just shows that dreams do come true. Hard work and dedication. You can make anything happen. And, I fight in the ring wearing red, white, and blue because when Keith Thurman's in the ring, he's living out his American dream. I do not change my colors because I just have pride, I have passion, and I'm just grateful to live this life. So this is just an amazing, amazing opportunity. Manny Pacquiao, towards the end of his career, almost 70 fights in his record. I mean, it's as if I'm fighting, Sugar Ray Robinson himself. It's as if I'm fighting Roberto Duran. This is Manny Pacquiao. I mean, it's just a tremendous, tremendous feeling, and it's going to feel even greater when my hand is raised at the end of the night.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time today, Keith. Good luck.
Yeah, it's almost dinner time, boys.
All right, at this time, we really appreciate Keith taking out, precious moments from his training camp. Obviously, as he always is, very kind and friendly to the media around the world. Keith, before we let you go, if you have any final statement before you get set for your showdown next Saturday, July 20th against Manny Pacquiao, PBC on Fox Sports pay-per-view.
I mean, thank you guys for being in support of this tremendous event. Obviously, this is one of the biggest events of the year, but I still thank you all from all around the world. I'm here today. I'll be here tomorrow. I got I'm not afraid to let it go. If he beats me, he beats me, but I'm going to be putting on a show July 20th. Don't miss it.